Welcome back. The Ford government is trying to reduce interprovincial trade barriers in an effort to combat America's tariffs. And CP24's Lindsay Biscaya joins us with more on a partnership with two maritime provinces. Lindsay.
Yeah, so this act is called the Protect Ontario Through Free Trade Within Canada Act. So pretty self-explanatory by the name of the act. Basically trying to allow, goods and services to flow more freely throughout the borders of provinces and territories within this country. And not just goods, but also allowing people to work more easily if they come from one province and want to work more in another, especially healthcare professionals. This is all to allow for that to happen a little more quickly, a little more easily. So we know that Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, met with the Premiers of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick today, and they started signing this. So it sounds as though many provinces and territories will be on board. For more, I want to bring in Michelle Wasylyshen, a president and CEO of Ontario Craft Owners, for a little more insight. Michelle, it's good to have you. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Hi, thank you.
I want to get your thoughts initially on this idea to kind of allow trade to flow more easily throughout the provinces and territories. Do you think this is going to benefit you?
Huge. Yeah, absolutely. So it's unfortunate that it's taken a trade war to get us here. If you were talking to my members, I wasn't in this association 30 years ago, but they would tell you that they've been asking for this for 30 years. So I think it's really important, and I think that consumers and everyone really is starting to realize the benefit of building our own domestic and Canadian capabilities.
And I know, with this coming into effect, you'll be able to sell your product in other provinces, but other provinces will be able to sell wine in Ontario. And we know that the Premier said he's going to kind of hammer out the details as this goes forward. But are there any concerns that this could potentially hurt your business if people are looking for Canadian-made wine and then maybe not necessarily going for Ontario-made wine?
No, and we understand that, but we are, so I represent about 120 VQA wineries in Ontario. We are a made in Ontario success story. When you buy a VQA wine, you are buying a wine that is 100% grown and crafted in Ontario. The same thing in BC and other provinces with their VQA symbol. So we are very much in favor of a Canadian system. We very much welcome BC wines here. It's a little bit difficult when you look at the reciprocal agreements. So Canadian wines and Ontario wines are not as prominent in the BC market. And so we definitely would be looking for the premiers to negotiate to ensure that those agreements are reciprocal. But all in all, we believe that a strengthened Canadian market definitely helps our sector, and I think that's probably across the board what you're hearing from every sector right now.
Well, that's good news. And I'm assuming with the threat of more U.S. tariffs looming, obviously this has been uneasy for a lot of business owners. I'm assuming that you feel that unease a little bit too. Does a move like this today by the Ontario government and other premiers kind of signing on, does that help to alleviate some of that anxiety maybe for you?
We don't have a lot of anxiety simply because we're a little bit different. And so we actually don't export a lot of wine to the U.S. And that's because the U.S. has such a big capability of their own. So my members would more so be exporting into Asia, Nordic countries, and that sort of thing. And so, the funny thing is that it is more difficult for my members to sell to Quebec than it is to Sweden, Norway, Japan. I had some members, the other week in Singapore. And so it's more difficult to get our wines in Quebec, which is obviously a really important market for us, given the proximity, than it is for those other international markets. So a little bit different for us because we don't really sell into the US, but Canada is the US's biggest market to export their wine to. And so definitely, I think they're feeling the pinch. But for us, it's just a big opportunity. What we need is for consumers to follow suit. I was at Restaurants Canada convention last week. We need restaurants to have more Ontario wines within their restaurants. And I think we're getting there. I think we're actually getting there. This is a really huge, important time for us. And it's baby steps, but it's definitely going in the right direction, and it is very exciting.
Okay, well, such great news. Michelle, really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. So there you go, Lena and Bakari. Apparently, the premiers, want full free trade within Canada by Canada Day of this year. So just a couple of months to really get that up and running. Back to you.
Okay, joining us live from the newsroom, CP24's Lindsay Biscaya. Thank you, Lindsay.